Hey friends, welcome to 2 Pixels Off. Really excited about today's episode. If you're just tuning in with us now, today is going to be all about the sales documents that you need in your creative business. If you're tuning in from the previous episode, well, this is kind of like a part 2. We took a little bit of a detour on the last one. We just followed our hearts and went a different direction. And it was a really good episode. So that's why we're here today, is to kind of continue from where we left off. But before we do that, big shout out to our friends over at Wix Studio. They help to make this podcast possible so that Mike and I can meet up every single week and discuss some of our favorite subjects and to provide some value, education, and entertainment for you. I get a lot of comments, and it's cool to see people saying they enjoy our banter and our kind of communication and little jabs here and there. It's a ton of fun.
That's a relief.
It is. It is.
It's a relief.
You don't know how people are going to respond. I know.
Yeah, you can't stop myself.
Going to make or break the show. So it is what it is. So
welcome to 2 Pixels Off, a podcast for creative entrepreneurs.
big shout out to our friends over at Wix Studio and to our listeners. And you know what? We haven't asked this in a couple episodes. Make sure you leave us a review. Leave us a review in your favorite podcast app. It always helps. We're getting more and more listeners every single week. So it's great when you do that because it gets us in front of more people. Helps the algorithm, working ever in our favor. And so what do you say, Mike? We just jump right into this sales documents for creatives. What do you need at every stage?
Jump right in. Let's do it.
Go.
Do you want me to jump in? Want me to jump in?
Take it. What's the first step?
It's the first step. Okay, so I think of sales like a toolbox. Like you have a toolbox, and inside your toolbox are all kinds of sales strategies, sales documents, sales tactics, and you have them all there and you use them when the time is right. I use that metaphor a lot, and one of the people in my community liked the Batman utility belt metaphor better. Like Batman utility belt, you never know when you're going to need the shark repellent. So you whip it out only when you need it, but you have it in the utility belt at all times. And that's the way that you should think of these documents that we're going to go over today. And not just these documents, all the stuff that we talk about relating to sales is all stuff in your toolbox. The triple threat pricing strategy that Brad shared a few episodes ago, that kind of thing. Price anchoring, another tactic. Sometimes you'll use it, sometimes you won't. Qualification strategies, like how do you qualify a client? Sometimes you'll have this in-depth qualification process. Sometimes you'll go with your gut on a meeting. Discovery questions, I think we went over too. Like, what do you ask people? Sometimes you're going to ask some of the stuff. Sometimes you're going to ask all of the stuff. Sometimes you're not even going to have discovery. It's just one of the things in your utility belt for sales. And this is why I get miffed when I see content from people that says, oh, this is how you should do this thing. This is how you should do it. This is how you should reply. The designer should always say the price first, that kind of stuff. And I'm like, no, it's not the way that it is. It's not all or nothing ever in almost everything relating to sales. It is use it at the right time. Know all the tactics and use the right one in the right moment. That's what it is. And so think of these documents that we go through here today as that. They're part of your bundle of options. All right. Do you want to do the first one since I just did my
I'll do the first one
on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. First step in the sales process here, and the document that would go along with it is this is the lead stage, right? So you want to, well, that's the first stage. Maybe what I would say here is the stage, and then you tell me what the corresponding document in the sales process is. So
do that.
Number one is the lead stage. What document or asset do they need at that stage?
Okay, so a lead comes in. You have usually a 5 or 10 minute conversation with the client to qualify the client. Now, sometimes in that conversation, the client may say to you something like, okay, well, do you have, they want a logo. And they say, oh, do you have something that kind of talks me through how you do logos? And you can say, yeah, let me turn on my Zoom right now. Maybe you're doing an audio only call. You turn on your Zoom and you share your screen with the client and you show them what's called a capabilities deck. And a capabilities deck, at my agency, I made one of these for every type of service that we offered. Brand strategy, SEO, website, e-commerce websites, logo design, identity design, marketing services. Like I had these things, packaging design. I had a capabilities deck for every single one of these. And it was just a quick presentation. Most of them were 5-6 pages where it would walk the client through our process to execute on a project that they're asking for or that we've identified for them that they need. Let's take it as packaging design as an example. Client says to you, I'm interested in doing packaging design. You say, we love doing packaging design. That's one of the things that we specialize in. Let me just walk you through it. Only take like 3 to 5 minutes, and I'll walk you through our packaging design process, and you can kind of see how we work. You open the packaging design capabilities deck. On it, it says, we love to do packaging design. The next slide says, before we start a packaging design project, we do research. We look at the store shelves where your package will be. We look at your competitors. We look at your business. We look how things are packaged already. And we do some strategic work, research and strategy. Then after we do that, then we go to the design phase where we go and create concepts. We start with mood boards. We design the visuals. And then after we get approved design, we go to the third phase, which is creating the press-ready files. We talk with the printer. We get all of our die cuts solved, and we create all of the pre-press ready files for this packaging project. And that's our 3-phase packaging design project. Now, if you have a deck like that for every type of project, you got a lot of weapons in your utility belt that you can throw out at any moment to help you sell a client on choosing you. And every one of these builds more trust. The client looks at it and they're like, wow, that Brad, man, they got a really refined process. That looks great. Yeah, I see why they do such good work. And all it took you was like a 5-minute walkthrough and some visuals in this little presentation. Those capabilities decks are solid gold.
Yeah. To add to that, if you're ever, the next time you're in a lull or a valley, so the peaks and the valleys of freelancing and running your creative agency, you're going to inevitably have the mountains and valleys, peaks and valleys, whatever you want to call it, feast, famine. If you're in the low point where there's not a lot of work, one of the things you should be doing is prepping or updating or creating those capabilities decks. Now, something you could do, here's a creative way of using Wix Studio. And I've done this before to sell essentially a capabilities deck or like proposing something, which is create a page on your website. So let's say you're using Wix Studio for your agency site to highlight your portfolio, your work, create a capabilities page for each of your services. So, and you can also do that if you want to be, I love doing things dynamically and using content management systems so I can create it once and then it's ready everywhere. Create a template that's like your capabilities template that shows and design it nice, like nice hero section, beautiful typography on brand, big, beautiful hero image highlighting, whatever that capability is. Let's call it web design. And then you have each of the elements that you need for your capabilities deck, which could just be a PDF slideshow, but let's say the website example. It could be interactive and it could show examples of previous projects, what clients have said, how the process works, what they can expect, timelines, put it all there, create that template. Now you could duplicate that each time for your web design, your SEO, your copywriting, your social media marketing management, whatever it is. But what you could do, advanced pro tip, is create that beautiful template and then turn it into a dynamic page with the content management system. And then all you have to do is go add new capability in your dashboard, and it'll capability title, capability subheading, capability description, the 3-step process you go through, 5 testimonials, graphics, carousel images, final call to action, final closing words and remarks, and then link to your unique booking, book a follow-up call. And then you just, every time you got a new capability, you could just go and update it. You can change it in your database, and then those are there. So if your client, you get on the discovery call, you qualify them, you identify the problem, you go, you know what? Do you have 5 minutes? I'm going to shoot you over a link. We'll share screens and I'll walk you through this page. I'll even send you the link to the page that you could check out afterwards on your phone.
Yeah.
And then they get to go through it, and they get to see how prepared you are and how professional. No other web design agency is 98% of web design agencies aren't doing that. And so if you do that, you're going to be bubbled up to the top instantly.
Yeah. It's so good. I had an agency that was pitching our agency to kick work out to them. So they were smaller than my agency. They came to do a presentation to just basically position themselves as an overflow for our team. And they did exactly what you're talking about. Essentially, it was a PDF style website. It was just big images going down, and you scroll, and it was one section, then the next section, then the next section. And a lot of those sections were like set to 100% height so that when you scrolled, it would fill the screen. And it was so masterfully done that I was like, oh my gosh, I'm jealous. I should have freaking pages like this on our site. That's what I thought. Now, at the time, I did all of our pages as PDFs, these presentations capabilities decks. But this is a great idea. And then it's always there for you. And then it's on your phone in a quick link. If you're having lunch with somebody, you can walk them through it right on your phone or on your iPad or wherever. It's so good. I love that. Good advice. Good advice.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's go to the next step, which is the next step in the sales is the discovery. Now, this part I think is very this is like, it's your job now. Ball's in your court, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this part is your responsibility to then scope that project out and to understand what do you need to be able to do? What's the scope? You know, what are the boundaries of this project in order to solve the problem you identified in the lead stage? Are there any documents or any assets
I love
things
doing meeting notes on this, just sending the client meeting notes. And so as a deliverable, it's not a document you send them, but as a deliverable post meeting, send them the notes that you took furiously while they were talking, you're typing, and you send them those notes afterwards and say, I loved our meeting. Here's the notes from that I took during the meeting, just so that maybe there's some little nuggets in here that can benefit you for your business. Because we did talk about your competitors and your personas and your business positioning, etc. So I like that, but there's no real document that you give your client out of a discovery session, but it is usually the next step. So if we look at this and say the first step is lead, and you got on a call and you said, yes, we do packaging design. And then let me show you our little landing page about packaging design, or let me show you our capabilities deck, and you walk them through it. And then the client's like, okay, well, this is great. Where do we go from here? Then you say, let's have a discovery meeting. It'll take about 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and we'll dig in and scope your project and talk more in detail about what you want to accomplish. Can we schedule that for tomorrow? And then that discovery meeting is you discovering what you need to know to be able to scope and price the project.
Yep. The way I might augment that is AI is a really great practical use for this. So you can either add your AI transcriber. There's lots of tools out there that do this. That join your Zoom meeting or your Google Meet or whatever, and will record and transcribe the call, but then give you meeting summary, notes, takeaways, questions, key points. And then you can either share that with the client, or you can take pieces of that, turn it into your own, follow-up email and say, here's some key takeaways, here's some thoughts, and I thought you'd find this interesting. So that could be a nice little perk just to show how professional and organized you are. Now, step 3 after your discovery phase and with the call and the notes and the meeting notes would be to officially propose a solution. And so this one very clearly and obviously comes with some sales documents. So this is where you're presenting your solution in a proposal, We hinted at it in our previous episode at the size of the project, the budget. Is it a $5,000 project or $500,000 project? The proposal is going to be relative to the size of the project and the budget.
Yes.
So what sales documents do we need for this third stage, which is the proposal stage?
Okay. So before we dig into that, let me just clarify the difference between a proposal and a contract, because a lot of creatives are making this mistake. They're creating a proposal and a contract in the same document. And those are two different documents that have two different purposes. Here's my balloons for those of you watching the balloons. I tried to turn it off the other day and I couldn't get it to freaking turn off because it's on your FaceTime camera. I don't know why it's even turning on. Anywho. Okay. Proposal is not a contract. A contract is not a proposal. They have two different purposes. The proposal's job is to sell the client, to get the client to say yes. The contract's job is to legally bind you and the client on an agreed upon exact scope, price, timeline, terms and conditions. That's what the contract's job is. And I use this example in my courses, but I'll give it again here. If you've ever bought a car, you go to the car dealer and you look at the car that you like and you're kind of thinking about it and they hand you a brochure. And in the brochure about that car, these car dealers, car manufacturers make the sickest brochures. They have the sickest photography and schematics and all this stuff. And visually, they're stunning. I love them just to look at them from an artistic design standpoint. So nice. Yeah. And that brochure is selling you on choosing the car. You're laying in bed at night and you're like, wow, this looks so good. I want this car. And I loved how it drove. And you're talking yourself into it. So you go back to the dealer and you say, I'm ready to buy the car. The dealer does not say, okay, just sign the brochure. Just sign the brochure right there and then we'll get started. Right. That is not what they say. They say, okay, great. Here's the price. You say, okay, I agree to the price. And then they kick you over to the finance person and you spend an hour with the finance person and you sign your name in a dozen different places on 30 pages of terms and conditions and documentation and loan papers and all this stuff. It's all the little details. This is what happens in creative services too. The big agencies are doing a proposal to sell the client. And when the client is sold, they do a contract to legally bind the engagement. So if a proposal is to sell, the full-on proposal, you have a client that wants a big project, you go to a full-on proposal, and it's easy if you've made your capabilities decks, because the only difference between a proposal and a capabilities deck is that you're going to add a few things. You're going to add a proposed budget page. You're going to add a rough estimated timeline page. And you're going to add some information about maybe how you do project management. You might add some information about here's the team you would be working with. If you have an agency, here's the team you'd be working with. So you have a little team page in there or something. Mm-hmm. That's the only real difference. Other than that, somebody wants packaging design from my agency. And I say, okay, let me make a proposal for you. And all I'm going to do is take my exact packaging design capabilities deck, and I'm going to add those couple pages to the end of it. And then I'm going to walk the client through it. And I'm going to say, here's our packaging design process. Step 1, phase 2, phase 3. Here's the proposed budget. Here's the timeline that you can expect. Here's our team that you'll be working with. And here's our project management software that will manage everything, make sure it goes smoothly. Would you like to proceed to a contract? And then you answer questions. So that's a full proposal. And this is what's so great is that once you have the capabilities decks done, then the proposals are easy. You can make your proposals super fast because they're all just a salesy, blingy, visually engaging walkthrough of how you will execute on this project. Okay.
Yeah, I was just thinking there while you're saying, like in my mind, how do you deliver this? You can deliver it by PDF. You can deliver it if it's a big project, I can almost imagine you printing this out on high quality paper as well and hand delivering it. You did that. You meet with the client and you walk through it. You give them a copy. You have a copy.
You
high
walk
quality paper, high quality
with
ink.
them. Yep. You walk through it with them, and then you give them the copy afterwards.
Yeah.
If Brad and I are pitching against each other on a project, and we both bid it at $5,000, we both have some trust level 5 with the client. Here's my balloons again.
Balloons.
Just for those
You got
of you
those
watching,
balloons.
they're coming. We both have trust level 5. We both have similar pricing. We both are seasoned and experienced, so we can do quality work. And I present my proposal to the client and Brad emails it to them. I can almost guarantee I'm going to win. I'm going to win that project over Brad because I took the time to walk my client through the process and to resolve any concerns that they have on the spot. If Brad throws it over the wall and emails it to the client, and the client's like, oh, well, this is good, but I wonder what he means by this. And then the client goes to bed wondering what you mean by this. And then maybe tomorrow you email them and say, you have any questions? And then maybe the next day they finally email you back and say, yeah, I don't know what you meant by this. During that 2-day span, the client talked themselves out of working with you and they already said yes to me.
Yeah.
That's what happens. So you present the proposal and you resolve concerns and you use some salesmanship when you walk your client through it, and you will close more projects. I guarantee you will close more projects.
Yeah. It's just it's kind of like what we talked about building trust in the previous episode, giving a small gift or a handwritten note or letter or a gift card to their favorite restaurant that they mentioned in your golf, while you were golfing, whatever it is. Hand delivered proposal. That's beautiful too. Like that to me would matter. Like if you could print it out and just like your cheap paper you buy at Staples on your personal home printer. But if you were like, no, I'm going to print out this 27-page document on quality paper with the quality ink where people are like touching it and going, can I keep this? Like, this is really nice.
Yeah.
Sure. Is that going to make the sale for you? No. Just like mowing your lawn before a viewing isn't going to make the sale, but it's the one little piece that maybe shows the person walking through and considering your home, seeing like, wow, this dude really like mowed his lawn really nicely and everything's really put together. They're not going to say, sure, I'll give you $600,000 for your home because of your lawn. But if your lawn was unkempt and weeds everywhere with whole patches from your dog's pee, they're going to be like, what else is the matter in this house that this person overlooks? So if you go with your cheap, draft paper from Costco that you bought, like 15,000 pages, and it's just like bad and blurry versus a hand delivered quality, almost magazine quality ink and paper. Yeah. They're going to go, oh, that level of detail was like serious versus the person who shot me over an email saying it'll be 18 grand. I'm going with this guy.
Yeah. Okay. Take that same example and the person who shoots over the proposal that is just text. I mean, you're not selling freaking a house here. Where you're just going to have text on your contract. You are selling custom creative services. So show what you do visually to your clients in this proposal. So if Brad's pitching this project and he just sends over a little text thing that says, okay, we'll build your website. It'll have 5 pages. It'll blah, blah, blah. And we'll launch it around here and we'll do the development. And it's just text and some bullet points and stuff. And my proposal has a visual example of what our wireframes look like and a visual example of what design comps look like and what a mood board looks like and what information architecture looks like and what our content planning spreadsheet looks like to plan website content and what our development team looks like in coding the site. Like, how does it go from development to real or animation? You're doing your interactions design and you've got a little graphic in there that shows the perceived motion of a button hover or something sliding in or whatever. That kind of thing is salesy. It's blingy. It's like the car brochure. So bling out the proposal, make it visual, show examples, not of what their website looks like, but of what your process to create a website looks like.
Adding one more piece to this, we clearly love the proposal stage because it really matters. This is the make or break. This is, are you getting the $20,000 deal or are you not? And so it really matters to invest your time, energy, and even resources into it. And now if you invest time into like print and money into printing out high quality paper, taking them out for lunch or booking the co-working spaces conference room or the hotel's conference room, whatever it is, and you pay, let's say, a total of $500 to propose to the client, are you like, am I just now risking $500 and just in the hole? Well, a couple things. If it's a $1,000 project, don't invest $500 in proposing the solution. But if it's a $20,000 gig or a $20,000 a month gig or whatever it is, then like pull it all to stops. Now, also, let's say you don't land the gig. Well, now you've developed a process and templates and a strategy and a technique that you can use for the next client and probably cost you less. So maybe you've created the template and you're going to print out that high quality printer and it doesn't cost you as much in time because you've already created an amazing proposal. Just swap out some logos and a few things, and then now you've got a new version of it. Another example, you mentioned like bling it out and have like a nice like website. If you're designing websites, what better of a way to pitch your client on their website than by walking them through a website version of your best? So in my thought is, I mentioned use Wix Studio for your capabilities deck. Use Wix Studio for your proposal page for the client. And that could be a locked page that's only for the client. Could be password protected too, to make it even more exclusive and protected that no one else is going to see this data. And create an amazing template that you can use for all your proposal websites or web pages that walks through it all and shows your best, latest work, your latest testimonials from the latest clients or these brands. And then their budget, their timeline, and things unique to them as a proposal would have. And then if they're going through on their phone, on their iPad, on their computer, or up on the screen with the projector, and you're like, this is so good, that sells itself. That's going to speak, that's going to take you so much of the way that they're seeing it right on the screen, right in their hands, your best work. And you did this and you didn't even have the job yet. It shows like, wow, we're going to be in good hands. And if you could make this for an unpaid proposal website, if this is your work when you don't get paid, imagine what you could do when you get paid. So that would be a recommendation. I love that.
I think that, and that, it's in harmony with the digital age that we are in. The need to print it is not quite what it was a decade ago. When I had clients come to my office, we would present it on the screen and give them a printed bound version of the proposal to take home with them. That's what we would do as the takeaway. And that worked. It worked well. But I left my agency in 2018. That's freaking 6 years ago already. And so times have even changed since then. I love this idea of a proposal page on your website. I would love to see somebody tackle that and take that approach and see what comes of it. The tricky thing on that, though, is printing it. If they do want to print it, things get a little trickier. But they wouldn't have to print it. It could just be because you don't need a signature on a proposal. They're not signing the brochure to buy the car. You're signing the contract, and we'll go to the contract here in a second. So you don't need a signature. It could just be, here's the link. It blings it out. It shows them all the stuff and the price, proposed price and proposed timeline and all the stuff and the process. And then if you want to proceed, I put this at the end of my proposals, Brad. If you want to proceed, the next step would be a statement of work. We'll create a statement of work, and that'll be our binding document for this engagement. And you tell the client what comes next. And you can do that at the bottom of your proposal page. I like it. What were you going to say? We're going to jump in.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just to finalize that, if you're using a digital version of a proposal, and I used Wix Studio as an example, Wix Studio also has a thing called Wix Proposals. And so what I would do is build out that beautiful templated proposal page. And then at the bottom, your call to action of the proposal is a link to the official Wix proposal link, which is more of a simplified sort of like statement of work, what's expected, and then the price, timeline. And they can agree to that, which will then create a contract that you can customize, templatize, and customize to the project, which takes us into this next stage. And then now you've got the closing phase, which would be the contract and finalizing, closing the deal officially and legally.
Yeah. Good. I love that too. Okay, somebody listening, tackle this assignment, because that is such a slick way to differentiate you from all of the other people pitching the work. The ones who are emailing in their proposal and it's just a PDF. The ones who are just emailing in their proposal and it's just text in their email. The ones who are not putting the effort into the project. If you want to up your prices from $50 logos to $10,000 logos, you have to start pitching differently. And you have to start acting like the business you want to be, not the business you are right now. And so some of you listening are saying, well, this isn't for me because I'm doing $500 logos. This is not for me. That would be overkill. Well, start overkilling it then. Overkill it, because it will help you practice for bigger engagements in the future, and it will reposition you in the eyes of your current customers. They will start to perceive you as a bigger, better solution than what you're currently doing right now, selling $500 logos.
Yep.
Okay, there are a couple of proposal documents, so it's not always this big fancy one. If you get a small project, just make a simple proposal. I had a simple proposal. It was just like a 2-pager. It was like a title page and then a little write-up, like overview. Here's your estimated budget. Here's the anticipated deliverables. And it's just bullet point list stuff. And you can just send something like that over for a simple project. I also had one that was very similar to that was a rough estimate, where if somebody's fishing for a price, I have a qualification call with them and discovery, and we can't really pin down a price for them or a budget for them. You're like, hey, how much do you want to spend on this? And I don't know. And you say, websites can be $20,000 on the high end. We might be $15,000 on the low end. Is that a budget that works for you? And they're like, I don't know. We're just getting bids, see where people come. So you don't have any real concrete assessment of what price they want to spend. Then just give them a rough estimate. Don't take all the time and make some fancy custom proposal. Just give them a rough estimate in writing. And it's just a simple little 3-page document, overview, anticipated deliverables, project goals, if they share those with you, estimated timeline. And then if they want to proceed, then you go to a contract where you will have the bigger write-up. So again, these are in your toolbox or your utility belt. Pull them out when you need them.
Yeah.
Okay. So you were segueing us into closing. So the closing document, you want to take the first stab at that part of the convo?
For sure. Yeah. So the closing stage is, the proposal, they've essentially accepted the proposal, but that doesn't have much legal weight. You can't expect them to now pay you. You got to take them to closing the deal. And that's both for your benefit or advantage and their advantage. Like, it's to protect both of you, really. And the contract is there is to, resolve any final concerns and to put in writing exactly legally what they're going to get. The statement of work, the service agreement, the timeline, and then any clauses like, Is there a non-compete clause? Is there confidentiality? Who owns the work? Who, what happens if, I don't deliver on the work? What happens if you don't do this? What's mutually agreed upon? And are there any fees associated with not paying? What's the payment schedule? There's all of that. And there's contracts for that. I mentioned Wix Studio has a Wix contracts built into their apps system. You can use that. You can use lots of tools. There's tools out there. And also you could just go to your lawyer or attorney and have them draft up something, pay for that, and then use that as your template for your ongoing projects. And so that could be how you do that, and it's to protect you and your client. If you screw up, your client can say, I'm invoking clause 8. I need to terminate the project and I'm only going to pay 10% of the remaining thing because you didn't do this as per our contract. And there it is. Or in the scenario that you have a big problem with the client, they're not holding up their end of the bargain and it's going way out of scope. They're not listening and it's just a train wreck. I've had this before where I've literally emailed the client. I reviewed my contract like a sweaty mess, hoping that I had the right clause in place. Yeah. And I did. Yeah. Like a termination clause. I invoked that and said, hey, sorry, I'm going to invoke this. I'll finish my deliverables by the end of the week of what I said I'd get to you. But after that, we're done. And this consider this my official writing as per our contract. And I'll make a recommendation for where you should go next. And that's it. It was just business. And that saved my butt, and it can save the client's butt as well. It just shows that you're professional. It's not going to scare the client away. If it scares the client away, it means they were hoping to take advantage of you. So consider yourself lucky for somebody running away at you waving a legal paper at them. Yeah.
I had it happen exactly like that. It was like, we're done. Here's our cancellation clause in our contract. We will give you the files that you've paid for so far and where you're going to discontinue working on your project. If you want us to keep going, then pay the invoice that you have that's late right now, and then pay 90% of the remaining part of the project, and you can invoice, and we'll invoice the 10% at the final. And pay it in advance. Like that was how I did it with one client. It was a huge project and it was like, I got to get out of this. And so I was the nice person in that, but it was still executing the clause. Okay. Inside of a contract, you'll see it named as a statement of work or an SOW. This is kind of standard business terminology. Here's what I had in my contracts. By the way, my agency contracts, and this is just a plug. I don't plug my courses very often, but I have all my agency contracts in my freelance course. You can go to my website and check that out if you're interested. And I did have an attorney at one point create a contract like what Brad said, but then an attorney is not going to create a contract at the level that my contracts are, because mine are filled with clauses that cover the nuances of how a client is going to try and screw you. Because I think I got screwed every way possible by clients. And every time it happened, I'd be like, oh, I got to add a clause to that. Anyway, you put a title page on, you put a project summary page, you break out your phases on a project phases page. Phase 1, research and strategy. Phase 2, design. Phase 3, pre-production or production or press ready or whatever you're going to call it. So you break it out in phases, and then you do a phase description page. Every phase, you spell out the rounds of deliverables and the meetings. I'm going to deliver this to the client. The client's going to give feedback. Round 2, I'm going to deliver this. Client's going to give feedback. Round 3, I'm going to give this. Client is going to approve it. If there's a round 4, it will cost extra. That's what you do for every one of those phases. You break it down and say exactly the flow that's going to happen. Then I started putting in a scope checklist where I would say, not only does my contract tell you what you will get, I assume some of the things that you might think you get, and I'll say no. So it would be things like buying font licenses. Like if a client wants us to use a certain font and we're designing an identity design for them, and the font is $300 or $500 or something, I can't just absorb that into my project. But I had a client who wanted me to absorb it because we were doing this logo design project for them. So I put in my what you don't get. No, you don't get font licensing fees. You don't get after normal business hours work. You don't get an animated logo. We're doing a static logo. You get a logo family. You get a mini style guide. You get the whatever is in the scope and what is not in the scope. You put those in. Yes, it's in scope. No, it's not. So that's a scope checklist. Then you have your estimated project duration. How long will this project take? You have your estimated project budget. How much is each phase and what's the total cost of the project? Then you have a payment terms or an invoicing schedule. And this is where I would break it out and say we're going to invoice 100% of phase 1 at the start. Then after phases 1 is done, we're going to invoice 100% of phase 2. And then after phase 3 is done, we're going to invoice for phase 3. So we're going to break it out into 3 invoices or 5 invoices or 2 invoices or whatever it is. Then you have a signature page where obviously they sign and agree to the contract. And then you have terms and conditions where you have things like your cancellation clause. And then you have a thank you page. That's the breakdown. Is there a limit to the size of your contract? Like, should people, because I had somebody say, nobody wants a 30-page contract for this. Brad, when you bought your house, right? You're buying your house, you own. How many pages was the agreement, do you think, when you bought your freaking house?
And I feel like there were meetings upon meetings of flipping through.
Yeah. Yep.
This page is this. This is this. Do you want to read that? Okay. And it's just like it's endless signatures for your transfer of land ownership to buying the property to your mortgage. You're at the bank. You're doing home insurance. You're doing utilities transfer. There's so much, and it's just endless amounts of paperwork. It's not like a one cute piece of paper where I'm like, oh, I'm so glad it's one page. Like it's a necessary evil for it to be big. It's like, look, this is a huge purchase that's going to be spread out over the course of many years. Yeah. So like, although I hate sitting down with my like screaming toddler in the back trying to sign papers, like I want that to be the process because that shows that it's a rock solid deal on both ends. And if someone's like, I don't want to read a 30-page contract, like, okay, for $1,000 job, don't do that.
Exactly. It's proportional.
It's not. Yep. Yeah, exactly. For a $300,000 job, you better damn well be sure that you got at least a few dozen pages in there. Like it's because there's a lot of room for errors and mistakes and issues and problems. And at that rate, you're probably working with a bigger business. Well, you are working with a bigger business. And then you're going to have things and contingencies that you need to be aware of. Yeah. And so it's necessary. Yeah, don't send them a 30-page contract for $1,000 job. That'll be a 3-page contract. But for, your 10,000, 100,000, your ongoing big deal, recurring deals, it's like that it's proportional. Now, someone might say like, this is a lot of work though. Like, am I just gonna be spending all my time writing contracts? It's like, well, no, you create your master contract for your typical projects and then you tweak it as necessary. So you create it once and then you adjust it as necessary. So there's a work up front. Maybe you pay a lawyer or you go and you buy Mike's course and then you get a good template to work from. Mm-hmm. And then you take away some clauses, you add some clauses. There's even tools out there where you can subscribe to these tools and then just check off which clauses you need, remove which clauses you don't. There's lots of ways that you can do this, but it is absolutely necessary because you're just going to get screwed over if you don't have it. And so, and you look much more professional too. You'll be much more trustworthy and you're protecting you and your client. And if somebody complains about your contract, just know that they're looking to take advantage of you. It's a full red flag. I don't want to read that. You're like, well, then you don't want to work with me. You want me to be your monkey, that you'll make me dance at will and I have no way of getting out of it. You're going to be a pain right up my rear end. So put in that contract. And if someone's upset about it, let them go pee their pants somewhere else. Okay. So have a contract, suck it up, stop being like a wimp about it, and create the contract and adjust as necessary. I got really upset about that moment.
Yeah. Okay. So while you were talking, I was pulling up a couple of my old agency contracts, and one of them, this was for this was like, I want to say we were close to $1 million a year for this engagement. It was for a big Hollywood client, and it was for dedicated resource agreement. But this document is 61 pages long. 61 pages. We had another client that was a big engagement, annual engagement. It re-upped every year, dedicated resource engagement. And I just looked up at that one on one of our renewals. It was 40 pages long. The bigger the project, the bigger the document, the bigger the documents to support that project or to close that project. So this goes back to the start acting like the business you want to be, not the business you are right now mindset. You want to keep doing $50 logos your whole life, then keep sending one-page rough estimates and hoping for the best. You want to level up into $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 projects plus, then start creating a proposal to sell your client and then a contract to close the client, and do not care about the size of the proposal or contract. Don't care about the size. Who cares? All this stuff, you're presenting it digitally anyway. I mean, who cares if it's 61 pages or you whittle it down to 31 pages? But if you're selling a $300,000 project, you don't want to skimp on the size of the documentation that supports that project. Yep.
Well, and the it's all proportional, because if you're sending a 61-page contract, the director, creative director that you were talking to, they're not the one reading it. I mean, maybe they might skim through it. They have a legal team or a contracted lawyer or whatever it is. Like, they're the ones going through, that's their job. And then they pay the legal team, on their retainer or whatever they do. If it's a 10-page contract or whatever, sure, you read through it, you take some time, have a coffee and make sure everything looks good. And then maybe have your lawyer review it. 3-page contract, you do that yourself, have the lawyer check it out. Sure. But it's proportional. So if you're sending a $300,000 deal, a contract for $300,000 deal, they're going to have a legal team. So don't worry about how many pages it is. Just make sure it has everything that needs to be in there, so that the lawyer who's trained goes through and goes, it looks pretty good, but I'm not happy about the, this clause. It's not standard and it looks like they're trying to do this. And I've had that. I've had contracts come my way and I just paid a lawyer to say, can you check it out? I'm not really sure if I'm doing the right thing here. And they'll be like, I'd be careful about this one. Push back and say this. Here's a revised contract. I'll send you my bill at the end of the month. It's just business. It's part of the legal part of business. Let it be. Just like, don't do your own accounting, pay an accountant to do it. Don't do your own legal stuff, pay a lawyer to do your corporate year end and any sort of necessary legal things that you need to have them review. Just a thought.
Yep. I'll give you one more example that I pulled up while you were talking just then. This was a $117,000 website that we pitched. We won this project. It was a 31-page document that closed the deal. So 31 pages for a $100,000 project. So I gave you some examples. $100,000 project had a 31-page thing. A $1 million engagement had a 61-page thing. That's about the scale on the big stuff. If you're going to do a $10,000 project, you probably end up with, a 15, 20-page document that supports it. I think that that's reasonable, and you shouldn't shy away from documenting all those details. You do it when you buy a car. You could go buy a used car for $15,000 and you're still going to have to pay or sign pages of documentation that supports it. Yeah,
exactly. Yep.
All right.
Now, are there any,
what else
after this, are there any obvious next steps after this contract? Because obviously the proposal and contract are like the big the big behemoths of the sales documents. But are there any kind of last ones that we need to be aware of?
You might have an addendum agreement or a change order. And a change order, the way that I did change orders, I would take the clause from the contract that changed and I would put it on a page, and then I would put it on half of a page in one column. And then in the other column next to it, I would put the changed version. And I would say the original contract said this, the new addendum says this, and here's the revision in price. And then you just source the original document. So you could say proposal number or contract number 17806, signed by Joe on this date, agreed to these terms. The website will have 26 pages. The revised version, which is now addendum 17806-1 or addendum 1, says this will have 36 pages. The client added 10 pages to the agreement from what it was. And you're just going to say, here's the two clauses. The original is void on this piece only. The new says this, sign this document, and we're good to go. An addendum like that or a change order doesn't have to be a gigantic, huge redo of the entire contract. Just change the one clause, show it, cross it out, put it next to the other one, and make an addendum document. And it can be super simple like that. I think that's one. And then I guess upselling clients too. Upsell clients at the end. You should always be thinking, okay, what can I propose to the client now? We're finishing this website project. What can I propose to them? Oh, maybe they need web maintenance. Maybe they need conversion optimization. Maybe they need SEO services. You're going to propose new things. And you go back to the beginning and you go to the propose, resolve concerns, contract, start the project, and you just do that whole cycle over again that we kind of talked about today.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, there it is, folks. I mean, I know it's pretty heavy. Go. It's a pretty big, it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
No, it's a big deal, but it's part of the business of design. It's part of the business of building your agency. That's what you have to do. And it changes proportional to the project. $5,000 project looks different from a $500,000 project and everything in between. And there's tools to make it easier. There are people to make it easier. There are resources like Mike's course that you can join and then get these documents that are really great for a large range of businesses in different budget ranges. That's going to help get you pretty much most of the way. Now, if you grow or if you come across scenarios, you might want to adjust your documents. Everything from your capabilities decks to your proposals, whether they're printed in hand or they are built in in a templatized way, like on Wix Studio. Your contracts, they can be digital as well, where you can use a tool that you subscribe, that helps you build out your contracts. You can go to your lawyer, or depending on the size of your business and your offers, it might be a 1 to 3 page contract versus a 60 to 80 page contract.
Yeah.
And at that range, you're paying for a lawyer to put it together anyway, and their lawyer's reviewing it. It's a different scale because you're talking big money. So maybe it sounds overwhelming, but it's a necessary part of business. And once you just start building these out, then they're there. You're not starting from zero every single time. You have templates that you can go back to. You have your contract you used before that you can duplicate and modify. It becomes easier as you do it. But they're necessary. They're there to protect us and the clients and to look professional and to make sure that, that you're doing this by the book and you're, in a serious professional way. So hopefully that was helpful to you as a listener. If you have any questions about it, I'm sure you can join one of our communities, or you can leave your questions, send us some emails, whatever works for you. We're pretty easily reachable. But if you like this episode and it was helpful to you, it was a lot of practical advice. Leave us a review. Let us know in the comments of the video, but also in a review on your favorite podcast app. We'll shout out our friends at Wix Studio. We did throughout, gave them some good examples of how you might use it. They help us to bring these episodes to you every single week. And I think that's it. That's all we got for today's episode. That was pretty good. What do you say?
Good. That was a humdinger.
It was.
It was a humdinger.
It was a humdinger.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
there it is, folks. Thanks for listening. Catch you next time on TPU.